What would you say that you've learned about stress as a result of your resilient divorce doing this training?
Well, that stress is all consuming. Even if you think you have it under control, at least in my situation, I don't. So this program gave me additional tools to help me. I'm more aware of the stress around me now than I was before this program. And I am aware now, um, at least to do the reset. Even if I just say that word to myself and I forget everything else, that word triggers, like, for me to take a deep breath and focus on, for me, it's nature. Focusing on, if it's not in the room with me, I picture something. Um, and I realize how much damage the stress is causing my body. So this helps me to definitely reset. Whereas before I would just like live in it.
Mm-hmm.
Now I at least have a tool to say, okay, reset. And that at least will trigger the thought in my mind, and I'll take a deep breath and I'll look at the situation a little bit more. It gives me time to focus on the situation in a different way.
What would you want to say to anyone going through a divorce about this training?
This might sound corny, but it really helps. Even though, like I said, my ex did not take this and would never take this, this helped me in dealing with him to not react right away, and maybe an argument would ensue, and then there would be no productive conversation. Whereas at least I knew my triggers and he knew my triggers, so he would, but I was able to take a step back. So it was something I could do for myself to prepare myself for any communications with him, which obviously are many, so that if I have to, I'll walk away and I'll tell him I can't talk right now. But at least I've learned to reset, and if I see he's not, he obviously doesn't know how to reset, but at least it protects me.
Mm.
So I have a little more protection when I'm in all these situations with him.
I want to speak to the fact that you are doing something right now that's out of your comfort zone.
Yes, absolutely. I do not like having a camera pointed at me at all. I don't mind talking about it, but
Uh-huh.
being filmed is really out of my comfort zone.
And yet you're doing it. And you're communicating very well.
I hope so, but yeah, this is very much out of my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm. What, if anything,
Mm-hmm.
has the training had to do with that?
Well, just like right now I'm resetting. I'm also, what's going through my head is that I could possibly be helping another person going through a divorce who maybe doesn't have someone to talk to, or have someone to say, hey, what do you think about this? Because if you haven't gone through a divorce, I'm sorry, your friends can be empathetic, but if you haven't gone through it, you really don't have a clue as to the emotions involved. So it was really, I'm hoping that by doing this, somebody will see it and say, oh, I could do this too. Because it's so lonely going through this by yourself. And having this program, and like I said, I would do it in my bed on my iPad instead of sitting at the computer, but it just would help me think things through a lot clearly. And it was just a great thing to have as a tool when you're dealing with all these stresses, because they're there and they're going to, for some people, their ex is in their life for a long time, depending on the ages of their children. So if you can have these tools to help you reset, even though you're maybe resetting a gazillion times in the conversation because the other person doesn't know how to reset, it helps you get through it.
Popularized stress, and this is funny. Robert Sapolsky says Celia didn't invent stress; he just popularized the use of it. He was an endocrinologist, and he was interested in studying how noxious stuff impacted people's lives. And so he took some mice and injected them with some kind of some hormones that were kind of troubling to them. In And then after the study, he cut the mice open and realized that when they were injected with this noxious stuff, they had enlarged adrenal glands, they had shrunken lymph nodes, and ulcers. And he says, well, this is peculiar. Maybe this hormone is causing that. And then he cut up in his control group rats, like the rats that he was studying to compare. And he found they had enlarged adrenal glands, shrunken lymph nodes, and ulcers. And he kind of scratched his head. And what Robert Sapolsky says is that Hans Selye was really a poor lab manager, because he would drop the mice and chase them with brooms. And so all of the mice had a stressful or an experience where noxious stuff was happening. And all of them, in a sense, bore the cost of the stress response. Now, Selye says that stress is a general adaptation syndrome. So it's a syndrome that happens when any of us are exposed to things that we don't like. And it's a syndrome of adapting. And when that happens, we naturally experience a response to the stuff that's happening. Probably the one quote that Selye gave is, it's not stress that happens, but it's our response to it. So it's not your circumstances that really are the thing that are your issue, but it's how you respond to your circumstances. And in the world of psychology, that's moving from an external locus of control, my circumstances, the events of my life, my income, my housing, my relationship need to make me happy. You need to make me happy, to more of a, how am I effectively responding to my circumstances? How am I responding to my job, my coworkers, my spouse, my kids, traffic, the things that are happening to me? And when we take that internal responsibility, then guess what? You're responsible for managing your stress response. And back to the early mastery, if you can catch yourself earlier, you gain a capacity to be much more resilient, even in the midst of life.
What would you say you feel most hopeful about life now with this new perspective?
I feel like a huge weight has been lifted as far as really looking at things and being able to see, before being the, oh goodness, all this is happening to me, woe is me, and why is my life just coming unraveled, and but really being able to see how much more control I have in my thoughts and how I react to things, and how I can control then different situations and how I respond, and then the outcomes of those situations. And so instead of being so victimized, really seeing that I have a much more significant role in my own life than what I ever thought that I had.
What is your impression and or takeaway from Dr. Frank Wood's perspective on stress?
After having to take my almost moment in thinking about it, because at first it sounds, oh my goodness, because everyone wants to lower stress and get rid of stress, and there's all these advertisements that, this is what we're going to do. And in really hearing, what was said about the philosophy, and after going through the training, really seeing how it is true to form, that there is no way to do away with stress, and we actually have to have stress in our lives. And in using the different tools and off-ramps in order to cope with and deal with that stress. Because, every day each of us goes to work, and there's a bunch of stress in even getting to work and going through work, and then let alone all the different things in life that we're going through, whether it's divorce or, other different life events that are going on, and in trying to cope with that. Because those things, they're happening and they're not ever going to go away.
It's interesting. I developed this training 5 years ago, and part of the reason I developed this training was that I, like the nursing home clients or the clients with adults with developmental disabilities, or even my son, realized personally I would, in a sense, go from 0 to 100 and almost a snap trigger. So in a way, the training was born out of my own desire to make sense of my own kind of very quick response to interactions that were frustrating to me. This past Thanksgiving, my son, now a college graduate, was in town, and he said, "Dad, I want to tell you something. It's almost like you've matured from 18 to 26." Um, and so my 23-year-old son has told me that he's seen a kind of a difference in how I respond, and saw a maturity in me just since the last time I'd seen him. What was really fascinating is he was in town at Christmas time, just a month later, and he said, "Dad, you know what? I think I was wrong. It's not 26. You're now 41." Now I'm post 50, but what's really cool is that other people in my life are noticing that I'm more capable of responding appropriately rather than reacting in the midst of life as it's happening. And the cool thing is, or the wonderful thing is about this training is many of the people that have been taken through the training live catch themselves post the training and realize they're just more effective versions of themselves. It's not changing them, it's just making them or helping them to be much more productive in the midst of life as it's happening, which is it's a really wonderful gift to help a person realize that they can do that. The amazing thing is the training only takes 4 hours over 4 weeks. The transformation that can happen in a very short time is a really remarkable thing, and gives me a lot of hope that other people who are exposed to this very simple training, and I call it simple, but it's not. It's like transformational, but it's presented in a way that makes sense. And I have to say, I just learned yesterday. Was it yesterday? I just learned a couple days ago that this training I had hoped was for a 4th grade audience. I was told by a clinically trained social worker, I think she was, that this training is really geared for an 8th grade education. So makes me kind of sad that it's may not be appropriate for everybody, but if you have an 8th grade education and you're open to learning a new way of thriving in the midst of life, this is a really cool tool that you could invest in. You've been surprised by the impact of the training after the training.
Continuously surprised on. I have a pretty good memory and remember how I responded in situations that were similar. The training also, there's a section of the training where they talk about our mind. Sometimes we go into automatic mode where we respond in a way that we have in the past, and well, this situation feels like a situation in the past, and this is how I responded, so you continue to respond that way. The training helped me realize each situation is different. Each situation, you need to stop, pause, and decide how to respond, and not go on autopilot, not go raging on autopilot. And it continues to just go with me. I don't really have to think about it, and my responses are different. People say, "What medicine are you on? What happened to you? Why are you so calm and relaxed?" I would say, I've been through this. Each situation is different, but I know going through a divorce hurts and it's painful. And for me, I felt like a failure. Going through Thriving with Stress helped me realize that I'm not alone and gave me some tools to help work with the discomfort of divorce, help me less rage on other people at work and my personal relationships that I still have, and help me to be a more sensitive, kind dad to my daughters.
If you got a chance to say something to Dr. Frank directly, what would it be?
Just to say thank you to him and his team, and for all the work that they put into this, because it has truly made my life amazing.